Hey everybody, it's your buddy Beard Grizzly, and for a bit of preamble, if you guys did miss the first video of this, I actually broke down all of your questions that you guys had asked me as part of this AMA into two parts, because I started answering all of the personal questions and they just got to be a little bit too much. So long story short, I have two videos. This one will be completely about Destiny and any videos that are questions that are related to it, excuse me. And also forgive any voice cracks that will happen because I'm not retaking thanks to my Audacity crashing after I just did this for an hour and 40 minutes. I'm a little miffed. That being said, this is take 2. I wish I could recover take 1 because then I would be a happy boy and I could start to edit and make sure that you guys had something for tomorrow, but probably not going to happen at this point. Yeah, well, I'll get to it when I get to it. That being said, let us move into the questions, and you guys are already seeing this, so what do you care about my complaining? Question 1 comes from Lana Wren, Ghost Hugger, trademarked. It is Zavala his first name or his last name?
Name? Mario. Last name?
Mario.
Okay, what's your name?
Luigi.
Luigi?
No, Luigi Mario.
Okay, look, how many Marios are there between the two of you?
There's 3. It's Mario and Luigi Mario.
Incarnate Sable asks, following the Forsaken campaign, do you think Zavala will make emotionally compromised decisions that ultimately lead to the death of more Guardians and the downfall of the last city as a whole? I absolutely do think so. There is actually a entry, and I just happen to have it open here because I already did this, called Abide the Return. And to sum this up a little bit more quicker than I probably did before, Abide the Return goes over the ideas of Kamala Rior, Paladin Kamala Rior, going to the tower, getting up onto a high post and starting to announce herself off and be like, "Yo, can all the Guardians just help us out over in the Dreaming City? We sort of need a hand. We sort of helped you out with the Taken, or not Taken War. Well, with the Taken War, we also helped you out with the wolves and everything as well, with the Six Fronts and so on, and stop the House of Wolves from overrunning you." Alright, I could carry on with this, but you kind of get it. Like, the Awoken were a major portion of why we're even still here, so they feel. That being said, Zavala immediately goes over and looks at Kamala and says, "The Vanguard stands with you." And I'm just like, really? Really? So, like, you're not okay with sending Guardians out to take out the guy that killed Cade, and then also take out the Barons, which are also being a real pain in the neck for you, because apparently the Prison of Elders is that, like, broken out of, and you need to make sure that people are safe and otherwise. Meanwhile, you're going to have me think that overall everything is totally fine now, and you can send Guardians into the Dreaming City without a single question. That's what you're going to tell me. So it's kind of uncharacteristic, and it's also something that's a little inconsistent, I guess you could say, as well. But that is what I kind of think. I definitely do believe so. I think that Abide the Return is one of those that does kind of show that Zavala is not in the best of thinking places at this point. But give that entry a read if you guys would like to. The second question that Incarnate Sable asks is, do you like chocolate milk?
I like chocolate milk.
The Ace of Trades asks, are you excited to be a part of the Drifters crew? Because I am. I am. However, I don't know how things are going to actually go for this, and I am worried. I am very worried. I'm still to the point where I'm trying to reference and look through some of the books. I'm currently on the Drifters Gambit, and I'm really trying to digest it. While we were on Focused Fire last week, it was me and Blue Crew 86, and we were talking about, or granted, he was kind of talking about and reading it back to me, about the Drifter's Gambit booklet, he calls it. It's a book. That being said, though, I'm definitely blown away by what they've done with the Drifter. I am anxious to see where it goes, but we are definitely becoming one of his crew. Especially with some of the bits that I have gotten through at this point, which really point to us not being, what's the best way to put it? We are not in a very good place, and we are not helping situations for those involved that are trying to counteract what is going on with the Drifter. So that's what I'm curious on and kind of anxious to see what will happen. Boone the Spoon asks, why Warlock? Well, Warlock has always just been the thing that I've liked to really play. I started as a Titan. I should say that. I started as a Titan. I wasn't really a big fan of Fist of Havoc, and I went back and I tried Warlock with Nova Bomb, and I was like, yeah, okay, I like that a lot better, even though it's technically the same kind of thing. I did also like some of the capabilities that Warlocks had, just with the life siphon ideas, even being able to like the speed increase that you could get from some of the enhancements from the melee as well. I really liked those back when I started Warlock. And I think all of those kind of played a big part in why I chose it. And then I started to, of course, get into the lore a little bit on them much, much later. And I started realizing, yeah, like Warlock is more fit to what I like and what I'm interested in. So I just carried on with it. I really liked what was going on with Warlock more than I did some of the others. So that being said, Warlock, yeah, Warlock was just my game when all was said and done. Days of Trades asks, have you pledged your loyalty to Callus? No. He can also go fall into this pit that he keeps talking about, and whatever end he's so worried about, and never come back from it, because I want nothing to do with him at all. He can go away. He hasn't proven anything to me. We've just done a bunch of stuff for him, and I could care less. Boone the Spoon also asks, who do you want more dead, Zavala or Sabbathun? Can I just say both? Can I just say both? Because right now Zavala really isn't on my good list. Compliment Cap asks, do you have a favorite alien race in game or lore exclusive? If so, why? The Vex. The Vex are easily the best of them. I'm getting serious senses of deja vu here. I wonder why. It's like the Vex have sent me back in time to do this recording again or something. Looking at you, Audacity. Anyway, the Vex and the reasons why are, I think, kind of straightforward. They're the other species that kind of get into the mix of the light versus the dark. And they're the ones that overall show this idea of convergence instead of one extreme or the next. It's this ultimate in the middle that kind of converges all of it together to simply say that in the end, this is what the Vex are after. They're not after one ideology or another. They're not looking for one thing to be better than the other. They are literally putting it out there to say, we just want everything to be all in one and underneath one mind. And this is something, of course, as humans, we have a big problem with because we really want our individuality and stuff like that. Science fiction has always played into this a little bit. They played a little bit with it in Dune. They play quite a bit with it with Star Trek, especially with the Borg and so on, if you remember the Borg. But the collective ideas or these hive minds have never been something we've been big fans of, and they've always been looked at as the enemy when it comes down to science fiction or otherwise. And the Vex very much fit that build a lot more, of course, than what the Hive do, which is ironic to kind of think of. The Hive just happened to create a Faustian bargain, which is just as bad. Anyway, the Vex definitely, I think, win in terms of a lore sense. I don't think necessarily like fighting them in game I have a lot of fun with them, but at least in terms of how they are within the lore, there's just a lot to them. And even then, that goes a little further. The ideas of Future War Cult, Clovis Bray, and a few other things as well, they all tie in with the Vex in some ways. Ishtar Collective as well. Just this idea that there are so many things that were kind of tied back with them or working with them. Elsie Bray possibly, or the Stranger, if Elsie isn't the Stranger by some way, shape, or form at this point, which I don't think is the case. But I hope that answers your question. The Vex are definitely the most interesting to me, just in terms of what they mean for the story of Destiny. Boone asks, will Guardian School ever get more episodes? Easy answer. Yes. It is just a matter that I need to get the time to write them, and I also need to think about how I want to handle those episodes a little bit more. Mostly because I think it developed into something that I didn't expect it to, where it started being like 10 to 12 to 15 minutes for an episode, and I want to dial that back down. I want to get that back down to like 3 or 4 minutes again. Like no more than 1, maybe 2 pages for a Guardian School list. Granted, I still want to have some room for jokes and so on, but I think the overall outline, I still want to stick at like 1 or 2 pages because they developed into like 3 or 4, and that was getting pretty bad for me. They're meant to be quick-ish videos. That being said, I have 118 poses that I actually will be redoing, and hopefully this time getting some help on, because I don't want to have my hand cramp up that badly, and also go without content for you guys for that long, because I want to actually take the look that I have currently with Forsaken and translate it back over into Guardian School, because it's my old look. So, keep that in mind. That'll be something else that I do want to do. It'll be something that'll take a little time, but I'll hopefully get there. Lorian asks 2 more questions here. Do you use Sleeper in Gambit? Yes. Yes, I do. I am one of those people, or rather I was. And then I got Ace of Spades, and now I'm one of those people. So, you know, I enjoy overpowered weapons. What can I say? Second question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how alright is Gambit? 10. I absolutely enjoy Gambit. I honestly don't see too much wrong with it personally. I think it all just comes down to who you're grouped with, if you've got a collective group, if you can work together, or if you can think of strategies instead of just running in and that being it. Gambit opens up a lot of lanes for different things. That's what I love about it, and that's why it's just so much fun for me. So yeah, I really do enjoy it. I want to see more of it with time. And I think that's what they're doing with like Joker's Wild, with the annual pass entry that's coming up for that later down the line, or at least I know that's been the general community consensus so far. But I'm interested to see what they do with it. And Mr. Happy Sad Ass asks a interesting and fun one here. We're going to play a little game called Screw, Marry, Kill. And as some of you know, there might be some extra words in there, but we're just going to leave that there. And this is going to be for the 3 Hive sisters. You know, this was gross the first time I did it. It's really not feeling much better now. So, who would I screw? It would actually be Oryx. That would be where I would tie back on that one. Oryx, for the sake that I would be interested in the exploration piece, but it wouldn't be something I would want to stick around for a very long time. It would be something that I would be like, hey, that sounds really cool. I'm going to go check it out now. No, you stay right here. I'm good. I'm good. I think I got this. No, you don't need to explore it. You already explored it, right? Right? Okay. You can stay right there then and go back to your business. I have this feeling that Oryx would actually get really annoying for me. Marry Sabbathun, because it would be one of those things where it almost would be a game almost every day. What I mean by that is I would have to watch my back every time, and I would have to like second guess everything that was, you know, thrown my way. It would be exactly like my job that I have now. So what would the difference be anyway? You know, that's perfect for me. So I would go with Marry with that. It also sounds like a generally healthy relationship when all is said and done, I suppose, because it keeps you on their toes and keeps you guessing. Oh God, what is my cynical life? And Kill would be Zavua Wrath, because I just don't care. I don't care. I know that we've seen all of these guys within Forsaken. We've seen them through most of Destiny 2 as well. And that is one of the benefits of them, is that all 3 of them are, once again, very important to reference and look over. And I think that's why it's important to bring up their names again all the same. So if you are not familiar with Zavua Wrath or Oryx or Sabbathun somehow at this point in the stage of the game, for God's sake, go read the Books of Sorrow for one thing. I still feel like I need to just go back and make like an overall list of what's going on with the Books of Sorrow, because I never did. And I think it would be really kind of cool to go back and look at that again. Anyway, getting sidetracked, that's my list for Screw, Marry, Kill. The Random Gamer asks, what happened to the war with the Cabal on Mars? Well, Valis Ta'arik. He leads the Siege Dancers on Mars. And we have to get to taking out their command. I'm carrying this on way too long and I'm not going fast about it, sorry. Anyway, the whole idea actually with what's going on with Mars is kind of interesting, but they could have done a better job with it. And I'm going to actually let this scan play from Nessus to let you know what I mean.
A conflux that's directly connected to Mars. The Vex there are having a heck of a time with the Red Legion, it seems like. Garden Gate gone. Bay lost. Bastion fallen. Huh.
Do you think the Fanatic and some of the other Barons will return someday? Yes, and actually I think with the strike they kind of cover that a little bit on that offset a little bit as well. I do think that the Barons are going to come back. I think that the Fanatic can actually come back, and I think that that's the overall idea. Like, if the Fanatic can come back, then the rest of the Scorn technically can, and the Barons definitely can as well. The Scorn are going to be an enemy that I think we're going to be able to fight pretty prevalently over the course of the next several years. They are technically a new race, and I am interested to see where that entire story arc is going to go, or if they're going to just kill them off eventually, and they'll do so through some lore. I don't know. The same thing kind of happened with Siva, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with the rest of Siva. We know that there are some House Devils that are still out there that have the capabilities of Siva. We just haven't seen them rear their ugly head. Did they just devolve into a mound of licorice, or did something else happen? Anyway, I don't know about that one, but I do think that the Fanatic is going to be a common staple for us at this point. And will Psylocke the Defiled ever return? This actually gets into another question that I had answered in the last video a little bit, but do I think that the Taken can come back from where they were? And I think so overall. I think largely the Taken are kind of able to come back from the Ascendant Plane, mostly because of the powers of whoever had taken them. And in that regard, I think that is why Oryx's worm asked for so much of him, especially in power and so on, because he had to, quote-unquote, tie the little bit to the Taken that he had, plus also give back to his worm. So my thinking is, yes, they can come back, and I think that Psylocke is no different in that respect. But I don't think he's going to be coming back from the Prison of Elders, no. And Frenzy asks, can you pronounce Frenzy? Well, I just did, so there you go. If the Hive see no difference between killing and love, do the Hive love us / the light? This comes back to the ideas of like light versus dark and what I had talked about with the Vex a little bit, with the convergence theory, so on and so forth. But I think that overall, at least in terms of the Hive, keeping those ideas in mind, I think in a lot of ways the Hive just know that this is what they need to do in order to live longest at this point. If not, then it just comes down to what Oryx has already told us within the Books of Sorrow. He understands and will lean to the fact that overall he wasn't powerful enough to stop us. He didn't look into something hard enough, or he didn't understand something well enough, and that is why he died, and he would deserve to die. Ultimately, they love cosmic law, and if the light is going to win out, then so be it. That is ultimately the Hive's goal. Not necessarily the Worm God's goal, mind you, of course. Not necessarily the Darkness's goal, either. The Hive are this Faustian bargain middle ground of it all. And the shame of it that I've always kind of seen is if the Hive had linked up with the Traveler instead of linking up with the Worm Gods, how would it have been different? Would they see things differently from like what it is that we have today with them? Would they still have longer lives, not infinite lives, of course, like they have now, but would they still have longer lives if they looked into the light instead of succumbing to the ideas of the darkness? I don't know. Just a thought on that angle, though. That's about where I'm going to kind of leave it without really getting too in depth. Spooky White says, last question from me, probably. It's not. Spoilers. Do you trust Reefborn Awoken? Because apart from Petra, I sure don't. I don't either. I have this thing where I feel like Marasov is the only other character that I might have some feelings to care for and connection for. But even then, I don't know what she's doing. I don't know her ultimate goals, and after reading the Mara Senna, I still don't know. There is too much, all in all, for her to disclose to us and to tell us that it's really hard for me to break it down and say, yes, absolutely, I trust them implicitly 110%. No, I do not. I think that overall there is a lot of stuff that needs to still be explained when it comes down to these guys. And I think that the Reefborn Awoken are not to be trusted in any right, shape, or form. That being said, Petra, the Corsairs under her, the Paladins that work with her, I think they're okay. but I think that they're the only ones that I would really kind of link up with. And ultimately, I think that if the secrets are too much for even the Reefborn Awoken to accept, they may split off. They may go away from Marisov as a whole and split off from what she's done. I think that would be the more interesting piece as well, just to say, like, what all are they going to do? Anyway, I hope that answers your question. Long story short, no. Outside of Petra, the Corsairs, and the Paladins that work with her, I really don't think so. I really think that Marisov is still not to be trusted. Ed G Anime Guy asks, describe your character's backstory. I actually don't have one for my character. I gave a really long explanation on this one, but like I think that my EXO would follow the same principles as like a lot of EXO would. He is a military type EXO who did a lot of research back in the day, and that's his whole purpose. I think that that's ultimately where I would kind of leave it. So for me, yeah, that's where I'm going to go with it. I don't really have a backstory for my character. Mr. Happy Sad Ass asks, how do you plan to defend yourself when the darkness arrives IRL? Lorian Elder Prince asks, what planet in Destiny would you like to visit and not die? The not die portion is very important, so thank you, Lorian. I would actually visit Venus. And it would be modern day Venus, because we're not sure what's going on underneath the shade that the canopy of Venus kind of has. And when I say that, we're not sure what kind of life could exist, if it could at all. All we have is like a probe that was sent. It was a Russian probe, and it gathered some information, and it burned up after like 5 minutes. That was its entire lifespan, and it was just done. But if not Venus, then it would be Titan, but modern day Titan. Titan is another one. We are unsure if, because of the methane oceans that exist on there, if there's life underneath underneath Titan or not. So if there is, it will very much be like more aquatic life. It might change. It might even be something like the Kraken or something otherwise. I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities that could exist with that. And Titan or Venus would probably be the two that I would like to kind of see the most. Now, if it was Destiny era planets, however, I would easily want to go to Io. I want to see Io. I want to get close to Jupiter. I want to feel what happens when you get close to Jupiter, because the gravitational pull of Jupiter would be ludicrous, even standing close to it. But that being said, like I really think that like I love the onset that Bungie has put together with Io. It would look and does look nothing like that today. But I think it would be fantastic if I could visit there. Zapparad asks, if you could have one thing from Destiny come to IRL, what would it be and why? I answered this one the same way, and I have not rethought it or expect to change it, but just the light in general. Our understanding of the light, which is realistically the understanding of the cosmos in a lot of rights. For us to understand what's going on out there, to have a better understanding and to communicate with the cosmos, and not even if communication, but just know what is going on out there. I really do think that that would be a awesome little piece to go through to understand ourselves just as much, and also to hopefully like restore our planet so that we don't make the same mistakes as we are now, where we're hurting it and so on. If we could turn back the clock on that stuff, if we could understand more of what's going on with the cosmos, with us, with how planets existed or acted, then I really do think that we would be in a better state of mind, and I think overall humanity would just be better off. So for me, the understanding of light, bar none, number one thing that I would love to see come over. Sarah Davis asks, on a lighthearted note, let's give you a silly AMA question. If you had to wrestle Shax in a pool full of Jell-O, what flavor would it be? First off, it would be the flavor of broken bones, because that's probably what would happen to me when all is said and done. What flavor would it be, though? Strawberries. Very few people know this about me. I haven't really publicized it that much. I love strawberries. And strawberry Jell-O is really good, at least in my mind, when it's prepared correctly, etc. And I just love the fruit strawberries as well. If I have a smoothie, it's usually like a strawberry smoothie or strawberry banana. Just strawberries. Love strawberries, especially when they're in season. Even when they're not, even there is a mood that I get in for sour strawberries. And it has to be kind of specific. but still, I get in that mood. John Finn asks, I am still wondering what is still in Titan's oceans and what we see in its shadow. Hive worm or something else. But it could lead to the Hive god name that pops up, or a Hive god name that pops up. I don't know, Josh. I have always been really iffy about what that thing is that we see on the CPU core on Titan. The long story short that I'm going to list here is that, again, we are unsure if there is something underneath the methane oceans of Titan today. And if we happen to go and terraform Titan, either on our own or the Traveler might do so, that is changing the ecosystem. And how that change in the ecosystem could affect creatures that could possibly be on Titan is heretofore hither unknown. Completely unknown. We don't know. I would like to think that that is something that is native to Titan, not something that the Hive had popped up there. But in comparing the jaw portion and the tail portion of the cilia that kind of falls off from the worm or the figure that we see in the CPU core, comparing that to Zol looks very similar. So I understand why everybody thinks that it is definitely a worm god at this point. I'm just not sold on it. I really am just not sold on it. In addition, it could still be a worm god. Just one that isn't related to the Hive. It could be the reason that the Hive showed up there to begin with. I don't know. I think there's still a lot of reasons we don't understand why the Hive are on Titan to begin with. I'm probably going to butcher this name, and if I have butchered anybody's name previously, I am sorry. I'm not trying to insult you, it's just I'm bad apparently at pronouncing things. Valona Leaves asks, a question for the AMA. What's your favorite part of the OST in the Destiny franchise? Taken King was my favorite soundtrack that they came out with, almost period, because it gave Destiny its thematic voice. It finally kind of showcased to me what Destiny was trying to be, and not trying to be another Halo. Because with the original version of Destiny's music, it very much did feel like the work that was done, of course, was very Halo. I didn't want that. I wanted Destiny to kind of stand on its own. And what we got with the Taken King fit. What we got then with Rise of Iron fit even better. Forsaken, of course, has quite a few tunes that I really like. I definitely actually enjoy Warmind and Curse of Osiris soundtracks more than I do the original vanilla soundtrack. And even in some cases more than I do Forsaken's soundtrack, because they have a difference in how they're presented. And granted, Forsaken does very well, but it's like, here's what you're doing in the Tangled Shore, and here's what you're doing in the Dreaming City. There's obviously two modes that Forsaken has. I don't get that with a lot of the other soundtracks that they've kind of come up with so far, at least from Taken King onward. Two tracks that I really like in specific, or in particular, however. Bow to No One from the Taken King is the altered version of Mara Sov's theme. And that one is easily one of my favorite tracks. You guys hear it at the end of almost every video I do. You'll probably hear it at the end of this one as well. The other one, though, that they did from Forsaken that actually plays back to that song is called Queen's Oracle. And Queen's Oracle has a lot of the pieces and bits that made Mara Bow to No One's theme work so well implemented into it. So easily my favorite thematic tune I think that has come out from, or thematic mode that has come out from Destiny, right there. That's it. Ryu Alakon asks, given the fact that Cade's death left a huge unfilled gap within the Vanguard, do you think it's possible that hunters seeking guidance will seek a mentor in Ikora or Zavala, thus possibly creating new classes, or will that just be the equivalent of trying to teach an old dog new tricks? No, I don't think hunters are going to go to Zavala or Ikora for anything. I think it's going to fall on veteran hunters to basically teach the newer guys. We have some stuff actually within the newer lore entries that kind of go over some of the other possibilities for Hunter Vanguard. I know I still need to talk about that. I'm kind of happy that we haven't seen how that all plays out just yet. but I am curious to see who gets that position. Right now, there are several other characters that may show up as being one, but one that's kind of really sitting in my head right now as I think back on the video that the script that I wrote like several months ago at this point, is Shinobu Himura. Shinobu is one that's been around for a little while now, but we see that she is working with a series of Guardians to kind of teach them the ropes. And I'm wondering if that's not what she's kind of training herself to do. It would be interesting if that's what ends up happening. She ends up taking up the position because of that reason. But I really do think there are others that can fill up the gap. I don't think that they are going to end up going to Ikora or Zavala because they wouldn't have the first knowledge or note of what's going on. And as it is, the Vanguard is in complete disarray. So no, I think overall they are going to just kind of rely on veteran hunters to hopefully fill the gap for now. And part of it does come down to whoever ends up winning the dare at this point, quote unquote, or losing the dare. I think it's technically losing the dare now, as we officially know. But that's where we got to kind of see things unfold and unfurl. But more to come on that. I'm not done with that yet. Foxsound1414 asks, is the last city really in Nepal? We don't really know, except for what the comic book told us, so I have to go by that. As much as I don't like the comics all in all, I think that that is the only thing about them that I really do take seriously, is some of the location pieces that they have given us. That is about it. I think the rest of it is total and complete hogwash and is just useless, and it hadn't furthered any story, even if I really liked what was going on with Cameron, and we didn't get anything else from it at all within the actual game. Tie-ins, Bungie, tie-ins. If you're gonna make comics, have it tie into what I'm doing. Anyway, what's going on in the rest of the world in Destiny, like America, China, England, etc.? Well, there are at least a couple of other dead zones that we kind of know about. I haven't heard too much about China or England. Obviously, of course, we have the European dead zone, however. So how far that stretches is a big question. I don't know about England. I haven't seen anything about Britain. I don't really think there is anything even mentioned about Britain. But in America, there are 3 dead zones that I can kind of think of off the top of my head that have been mentioned, which are New York, Chicago, and Detroit. These 3 dead zones at least give us ideas that America really got hit hard. How hard is the question. Throughout the rest of the world, though, it's mostly like... I wanted to almost say plantations. That's not right. It's settlements. If you're not hanging around in the last city, then maybe there's another last safe city that exists that is able to be kind of like hidden around or otherwise. I don't know. That's where I'm unsure of how much I really like the validity of the last safe city. Yeah, it's underneath the Traveler, but that just makes it a big beacon. Meanwhile, there are other settlements that exist. As you actually mention in one of your edits, you say that Amanda Holliday mentions her mother died crossing the Panama Ravine before they arrived at the last city, so maybe it's in South America after all. I think that there is a lot of truth behind that. And again, I think that largely that's where we are unsure of all the different settlements that do exist. Humanity isn't all within the walls. We see that with Hawthorne. We see that with the farm. We see that with other settlements that are out there that you can even see outside of the farm that are also in close proximity to the farm. But anyway, yeah, I just think that we're not given enough information to watch over what else is happening in the world past that. But most of it seems like it is overridden with either, I know there's a couple mentions in Europe about Hive being around there. I think same with America, actually, now that I think about it. But there are other places we could potentially visit that are Golden Age hubs. And that's largely what I think we would see, and why largely I don't think that they wanted to put us in a highly advanced portion with the last safe city, because Nepal would be away from everything for the most part. At least as far as we know. We don't necessarily know too much past that. Do Guardians have normal human functions, like digestive, reproduction, PTSD, so on? And also, can Guardians have children? Loaded question. Really not a lot of information to go by, unfortunately. But we do know that Guardians can get drunk, eat, and everything else is fine that way. We also found out that exos do have the drive for reproduction, but we are unsure if they can act upon it. We also are, the best way I can put it is family friendly. We're also, though, unsure, especially with Guardians. We understand that they want to have relationships, but we don't know how far that goes. I'm thinking about Ariana 3 and Wei Ning, for instance. We are unsure how far they're able to act upon those ideas. Even then, I'm going to be blunt about this, and I hope I don't offend anybody. Destiny is very gay. There really aren't a lot of like male-female relationships that I see, so I'm wondering how much that matters. Like the ideas of longer lifespans for humanity seem to have really flung out the idea of like shorter lifespans in order to actually pass on your genetics as quickly as possible. I don't know. That's the overall thinking that I have right now. But I'm thinking about like Maya Sandaresh and Shioma Essie. That's another one in that angle, even though I know that's the Collapse era. But you get what I mean. We're not sure entirely if they can act on it or if they can have children at all. So long story short, not enough information. And that's the one I have to unfortunately say for a lot of the questions you're asking right now. And then lastly, which again, not enough information, are new ghosts made or is there a set amount? We do not know if the Traveler waking up had any influence on an influx of ghosts, a revival of ghosts, a change of ghosts, a revival of old Guardians, nothing. We have no information on that whatsoever. What we were told with some of the earlier Grimoire cards is that ghosts were made and that each one of them seems to be irreplaceable. That's as far as we know. So, unfortunately, not enough information. You could sit and read all the Grimoire and lore you would want to. It's just not written. Next question comes from Planet Destiny 101, and he asks, "You may not know this, but I'm Zur. I used Discord to contact you, and I've always been wondering who's the person I've been talking to. Now I know, and I'm really pleased to finally, well, kind of, get to know you. If I had a question, it would be, how do you manage your schedule?" First off, Zur, it's good to hear from you again, because I don't think it's been a little while since you and I have actually had a chance to talk. But I know we've both been kind of busy. But good to hear from you again, man. That being said, how do I manage my schedule? Most of my schedule has to revolve around my current job. I don't really have a choice in that matter. So whatever I have that I can basically fit in free time for research or otherwise, that's basically what I have to do. It's gotten to the point where I've had to take said research in to look over, write down, and so on, so I have a little bit of time so I can come back home and either play Destiny or so I can like get into creating some kind of video for this. My days off are largely the time that have been used for heavy research at this point, writing some stuff down, or doing what I've been doing for most of my day today for the last actually 6 hours, which is basically just recording voice. But my days off are the largest portion that I have to really make videos at this point, and I'm realizing the more and more I go that that's usually when I get a chance to actually make my videos. I really wish I could go full-time with this eventually. I really do. That being said, I try to write some stuff down. I just make a list to say this is the stuff I need to get done for the day, and I just kind of go down the list to make sure that it all gets done. But that being said, I think that lists are the best way for me to do it instead of trying to make like time blocks. Time blocks don't work for me because sometimes I have to go faster and slower depending on what it is that I'm trying to get done. So largely working around my schedule with work, that's what I basically have to build anything around that I have to do. Arctur0 asks, or Arctur0, I think it's Arctur0. Hey Beard, throughout the video I found a lot of things in common with you. Thanks for telling us your personality and life. It shows me I'm not the only one thinking or feeling the same as you do. Keep making great videos, dude. Also for the AMA, what was the first Grimoire card you read? I had to actually think on this the first time I went through this, but I think, don't quote me on this, but I think it was Old Russia 1. And I'd started to read over it, and this was back when I could unlock that in vanilla, and I went, this is stupid. These cards don't make any sense. Kind of eating those words the more that I have this channel, of course, but I think you get what I mean at this point. But I think that was my first card. My favorite card, I'll give you a small extra to this, which actually, now that I remember, goes and plays back into the second question, or another question that's asked here, and I'll just read that off quick. Kyler, Lord Junkie asks, AMA, have you ever had a what kind of reaction when reading lore? It's more an expression of, what? What is this? What's going on? That actually ties completely back to my favorite Grimoire card, which is the Toland Grimoire card, where he starts to talk about the Hive Gods. But we didn't know about the Hive Gods until Taken King. And we heard about this stuff in the Dark Below. And that was really cool to go back and read through again and be like, yo, Bungie knew what was going on here. That's kind of neat. I'll give you a more recent kind of what moment. I believe it's Monolith Bleed 3. It's a Warlock chess piece, if memory serves. Or the gloves. I can't remember if it's the chest or the gloves. But it talks about a city that is poisoned and is gloaming over dark. And of course, I'm immediately thinking here and sitting back and going, oh my god, they were planning out the Dreaming City this entire time. So for me, that was a big, like, what moment that happened recently. Again, if Bungie doesn't know something or have a tie-in immediately, they work with what they have, and they seem like they kind of crafted around that system, which I think is pretty cool. So they kind of played with this idea a little bit, and they've been playing with this idea all the way back into the Dark Below, which I'm starting to really think is still one of the best lore-related expansions we've ever had, but we didn't know it until like way later. Same thing kind of happened actually with Curse of Osiris. I just think they need to grasp a little bit more at like what they're trying to create, and they'd have like masterpieces every time in my book. Anyway, moving on. Avery asks, in all seriousness, if you could actually become an Exa without the Clovis Bray shadiness, would you? Short answer, yes. I would love the ability to kind of push off the ideas of death for a little bit longer if need be, but be able to see the world change and alter over time would be awesome, and also be able to have like lives where I do nothing but research and look into things. That'd be great. As well as also the fact that I could just repair myself if something gets broken, or if something falls out of alignment or otherwise. I think that would be awesome. There's still a lot of working parts there, of course, so I would still wonder about like repairs and everything. I'm getting slightly off topic here, but yes, largely, I would love that idea of just being able to push off death for a little bit longer and see what happens with the world, and look back on it and be like, well, I was born in 1980s, and now it's like 2354, and you idiots still haven't changed what you needed to do as an overall idea. Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. Just to be like, I could have told you that. What do you think you've been doing? Anyway, Wicked Gesture asks, do you think Mara orchestrated the Ahamkara hunt to ensure she had the only one remaining and thus maintain her hold on unique power? For one thing, we don't know if they're all dead, actually. They're shapeshifters, man. They can do what they want to. And if they are indeed shapeshifters, this means that any of them could be among the people that we're talking to today. For all I know, the last safe city is completely cultivated of our Guardian's will and want for something to be there, and it's an Ahamkara hallucination. I'm really exaggerating, but I'm just giving the ideas of like what is there. We have too many bones that communicate with us. We have too many things that have otherwise talked to us and whispered to us for me to say that they are all dead, because they're not. So that being said, I really just want to stress the idea. I don't think they're all dead, even though we've been given this idea that they are all dead, oh listener mine. I don't think that they're all gone. And Knive5, who I think is actually Knives, or it's supposed to be, asks, what's your ghost's name? Ghost. I'm like Tyra Karn, I don't give my ghost a name. Seriously though, if a Guardian ghosts die, then the Guardian dies. Can another ghost resurrect the same Guardian and become their ghost? One Guardian, two separate ghosts. If so, do you think the Guardian would be the same class, subclass as before? I've always envisioned that when a Guardian is resurrected, it's kind of like an overdrive mode for the body. They're taking the ideas of light and all these ideas that the ghost is feeding them, and then suddenly they have the ability to manipulate light for what it is, thanks to the focusing power of what a ghost can do. Again, though, the overall question would be how true that kind of is. Guardians seem like they are able to control the light, but they're only able to do so because their ghost has connection to the light. And I think that that is a very important thing to kind of keep in mind. That also being said, I think when a Guardian actually dies, like for good, I really think that all of their light that they had is just kaput and gone. And this is kind of showcased with Eris Morn, who hasn't shown us that she's able to utilize the light anymore, and that they're looking for catalysts that will be able to handle what the ghost is able to feed them. So it's kind of a loaded question, but the long story short version would be no. I don't think that that's possible. There is nothing that suggests it, at the very least. Casey Cordell asks, what class is the strongest, lore-wise? I gave a really roundabout answer for this, but Titans effectively like the ideas of brute strength. They don't really study their powers all that much. They do improve upon them, but it's usually through martial tactics more than focus. Hunters also use and focus and build their characteristics as well, but it's more for survival and understanding and wanting to get like a clean, quick kill. They're more about traps and trapping things than they are about like fully understanding or fully wanting to expand on their ideas and knowledge of the light. Now this is large generalities. This isn't saying that individuals don't have that capability. I would say that a lot of Night Stalkers probably look into the light a little bit heavier and want to grow their capabilities a little bit more. I would also say that the Sunbreaker Order of the Titans out on Mercury was thinking about that exact same thing as well, trying to become closer to the light and how they could, at least in particular, work with the Hammer of Soul a little bit more. So that's the one exception, or a couple exceptions to the rule. And then I get to Warlocks, and I'm like, no, all holds barred, they are the best when it comes down to thinking about how they expand their light and how they change themselves up and so on. I just feel like that is the best of the classes that are out there. So, strongest class lore-wise, I really have to say is the Warlocks. They focus on learning and attuning and changing and understanding to progress their powers more than simply to use them for another battle, basically. At least that's my opinion. But I think that Warlocks are the ones that do a better job of that than most of the other guys do. The Storm War asks, what have been your favorite moments in the Destiny games? If I had to go by expansions, in Taken King, it was the Dreadnought arriving on it and then looking out and seeing Saturn. That was pretty awesome. But just the spectacle piece that was the cutscene with with Oryx versus the Awoken. I think that was awesome. Then from there, I guess Rise of Iron. Rise of Iron had that ending mission where you were running out of the Siva chamber, and I thought that was just top-notch awesome. Really good way to kind of, quote-unquote, start the expansion, start the grind. I thought that was really fun. And then in Destiny 2, 1AU was just a spectacle piece. It was great. I really did enjoy going to the Almighty and basically blowing up that thing. That was a lot of fun, or at least disabling the thing, since it's still hovering around the sun. Still doesn't make any sense without any shields, but anyway, moving on. Curse of Osiris and Warmind, I really don't want to talk about too much. Warmind, though, I will give a couple things to Zol and to Nokris. I think that both of them were pretty awesome, and I really did enjoy what they introduced with him. Panoptes was a large letdown, and I wish they focused on him a little bit more, and didn't so much on the ideas of Osiris, and just left Osiris a little bit more of a mystery all the same. I would have been okay with that for a little while they got everything else together like they did with Forsaken, because Forsaken had so many of those moments. Forsaken, of course, had the Dreaming City. First moment you walk in there, you're just like, oh my god, what is this? I'm overacting a little bit, but you get my feeling. There's the Dreaming City in general was awesome to jump into and to see how it unfolded and changed over time, and now how it reset again and how they're stuck in this time loop and everything. Woo, it's a lot of fun. I think that the ultimate moment for me, though, is still going to be the Dreaming City at this point. I know it's very new. I know I'm probably playing a little favorites because it's new, but it's just really hard to say that the Dreaming City is not like a grand spectacle piece. It's just wonderful to look at. Who's been your favorite character in the lore? I have to choose two. It's Olentan and Pajari. Both of those, as Warlock theorists and so on, are great. I still go back to their theories often for a lot of my tiebacks because I just think they had it right. We look at Osiris a lot of the time. I still say that Ulantan and Pujari were the best two Warlocks of the City Age or early Dark Age, or late Dark Age eras. But I really do like both of them, like, almost on equal terms. What's been the most exciting place we Guardians have visited? The Dreaming City. Done. I already talked about this. We're good. Do you have a species or race in Destiny that excites you every time we get more glimpses into them? Well, I would say the EXO, because I am one. I do like the ideas of what the EXO are, so for me, I always want to learn more about them. But the Awoken have been a welcome surprise to what I was not expecting to have or hear from them. So that being said, the Awoken are fantastic to learn about now at this point. But largely, I think it would have to be right now the Scorn I want to learn more about, because I'm like, wait, the implications of something else coming back from the dead with the light of the Traveler, or something else. Yes, I must know more about them. And the Vex, because as I mentioned earlier, the Vex are also a really good show of like what's going on as like that middle point within the light and the dark, between the two forces that we kind of see within Destiny. Hope that answers your questions, though. Lone Leopard asks, how do you think Destiny 3 will begin? I think we're going to lose our powers again, and I think this time it's going to be for good, and they're going to change things up entirely. And I think that's their entire point of what they've been showcasing with these newer subclasses that they've kind of given us at this point. I don't know a lot of people that are using the older subclasses too much anymore. If you're running a Void Warlock, for instance, I don't see a lot of Nova Bombs getting thrown around that much. I think that they're really trying to see, well, are we okay with the old subclasses, or do we want to see a change? And I think largely, the message they might be receiving for now, again, it could be because it's still like the new thing at this point, and they're the largest thing that has changed for us in over a year here again. I think that they're going to start to realize that that's the way we want to go, is new subclasses altogether. That being said, I would like to see these subclasses that we got with Forsaken carry over, but I do want to see new subclasses all in all. So I think it's going to be us losing the light again. And I also think that Destiny 2 is going to end story-wise before it goes back to like a point where we can, go and pal around for a little bit longer before D3 begins. As the Darkness ships showing up. I think that's going to be the War of the Darkness. If they decided to put like any kind of notation underneath it, like Destiny 3, War of the Darkness. All of a sudden I'm thinking about firing Magic Missile into the darkness. Anyway.
I want to cast Magic Missile.
Magic Shoe asks, what's your one criticism about lore in Forsaken, i.e. too little or continuity errors? I largely don't have a problem with anything that has been given to us so far. What I do have a problem with is that Zavala entry I had mentioned a little bit ago, or towards the top of the show actually here today, that goes into a little inconsistency with Zavala's character. Largely, I'm thrown off by that, and I really don't like it. I want to see how that carries on, but I don't think there's going to be a very good reason or understanding behind why. Dermy Plays asks, how do you feel about the concept of light and darkness in Destiny? Do you think it is portrayed well, or could it be better? I just have a little trouble fully understanding it, IMO. This is where I really think more people need to look into the idea of convergence theory as told by several people throughout history, and then largely, of course, within Destiny as a whole. Because if you understand the ideas of Vex convergence, you will better be able to understand the ideas of light and darkness, because there is nothing with convergence. Convergence is the existence of one continuity, of one thing that exists, which is effectively all things, but nothing all at the same time. Light and dark are a little bit more consistent towards what I would say with Knights of the Old Republic's Jedi and Sith. The codes that they have and the portrayals that they kind of show off with them. The light is definitely more showcased towards the Jedi and the light side of the Force in Knights of the Old Republic, and the Sith, on the other hand, are more the darker side of things to say, well, power is absolute, and power is the only thing that really matters over the course of time to showcase who should still live and who should still be around. It's cosmic law versus how you share a law or technology and build together. That is realistically the concept of light and darkness within Destiny. It isn't two forces, it is two philosophies and understandings going head to head. I hope that helps with your question, though, because I know the philosophies behind them are a little trickier to really dig into. But again, I hope that helps. Proteus530 asks, what do you main? Right now, I am pretty much a Fission Warlock. I absolutely love Ultra Instinct and cannot get enough of it. And yes, I call it Ultra Instinct because I can call it Ultra Instinct, and I'm going to get away with it. But that being said, I absolutely love the Nova Burst. I can't even remember what it's actually called because I'm terrible. But that being said, I love the new subclasses that are there for Warlock. I'm still in the process of leveling, as you'll probably see throughout some of my videos, if I post some of those clips at all. I'm still leveling up the Dawnblade subclass for Forsaken at this point. Taking me a little bit to get it done because it's kind of like the same syndrome as what Ward of Dawn had to do, where it did no damage. At least here I can strike it down into the ground and it does damage, so it does something. I've just been trying to find a bunch of Thrall and just like smack it into their face for a little while. Anyway, that's where I'm at right now. Really do like the offensive subclasses of Warlock, however, quite a bit. Hi from Cost asks, what's your favorite Grimoire card / lore entry? Already touched base on it. The Toland Grimoire card, where it covers the Hive Worm Gods and how that was introduced in The Dark Below. I really do think that is still one of my favorite entries of all time because it continues to showcase to me, and I read back to it as like, I had no idea what was going on with this stuff previously, and now I do. Like, they have a path set up. There is something going on. We just have to kind of be patient with it. I think that's always my reminder of that. Lautaro Medina asks, what is your opinion on the war between the light and dark? Like, which do you think is right or most right? This kind of comes back to what Dermy Plays had actually asked a little bit ago, and I hope that part of that answer kind of falls in line with the question you're asking here. Who do I think is ultimately more right? I think that's just of cosmic significance. Ultimately, a sun is going to burn out, and by the end of the day, that is going to be what we have to effectively deal with. But that being said, I think that getting stuff done together has always been the better way to go about things. I do not prescribe to the idea of you're on your own and that's it. I think that there is benefits to understanding what is going on with yourself alone and to better understand who you are as an individual. But a lot of that can still happen when you're doing group projects or something else. So for me, I think that the ideas of the light have always been, in my mind, the better ideas of it all. But the darkness is definitely not without fault, or not with fault or without fault in that regard. I really do think that overall they still have a good idea of what they need to do and what they want to do. And I actually can respect their standpoint quite a bit. In fact, in a lot of cases with the way that business is conducted anymore today, if you want to see the darkness in that respect, or in politics carried out as they are today, that's largely where the darkness would kind of be at. In how we're making a shift now in American politics, especially in how most of it is now going more towards the individual again, and how the individual only matters at this point. Even if that individual happens to be at a corporate head or something like that. I'm not going to make this entirely political, but it's just to prove a point. There are merits behind both the light and the dark, and I really do think that both of them have a place. Where that balance point in the middle is, however, which is not convergence, to not confuse the issue on that one as much as I probably already have for some of you, I think that's where it kind of is. your early stages should kind of be in darkness, where you learn more about who you are and how you can craft yourself by doing things on your own. But in the end, you should wind out with light, where you're working with others and trying to benefit and help each other and others as it is, be it within humanity or be it within other species as a whole. And that's where we have a responsibility to thinking human beings to, of course, help out those that are out there in the world, in nature, or otherwise. So that's where I think that, again, all of them kind of culminate together. I'm getting into philosophy pretty heavily here. Sorry, just kind of started rambling. Hope that answers your question, though, Lataro. Newt Johnson asks, why are there certain enemies that don't appear in a taken form? Example, Hydras, Servitors, Dregs. Well, actually, Hydras do have taken forms, but I confuse these all the times because it's Harpies that don't have a taken form. And even then, we can argue that Gorgons do, but Gorgons have specific names. They look like Harpies, but they're called Gorgons, just to make it clear. So Harpies don't have a taken form, at least. Servitors also don't. Dregs are the only ones that don't make sense in this list. Dregs would be the ones that I could see would be taken because they have some kind of bio form to them. Meanwhile, Servitors and Harpies seem like they're entirely mechanical. This actually plays back to a very early scan that we hear in the Taken King, and I'm actually going to let that one play for you. And I hope that answers your question, since it is largely what I believe overall.
This membrane is attempting to form a bridge between dimensions, but I think it requires a living host.
Moo, as in Calga Moo, asks, why isn't Bad Juju in Destiny 2? It's because Bungie just doesn't like us. They don't understand what kind of good gun Bad Juju was. They also just don't want to allow us to have fun. So of course they don't put Bad Juju in Destiny 2. Kidding aside, I actually hope that we do get Bad Juju again, especially with Tolan being around and us being able to actually interact with him on the Ascendant Plane. That'd be fantastic. For example, think about us going into the Ascendant Plane as part of an exotic quest, and we start to hear about his philosophy on why he created and crafted Bad Juju to begin with. I think that would be spectacular. But will it happen? Probably not. I'm hoping it comes back, though, because I think it was one of my favorite pulse rifles of like all time, especially after they buffed the sucker. It was so fun to play with. I'm also a fan of the, I forget its full name now, but the claws from Rise of Iron, good grief, Iron Banner from this last cycle. I really like that pulse rifle, and I like quick fire pulse rifles like that. So the next Clever Dragon, yes, absolutely love it. I want to see Bad Juju come back for sure. I would probably put Ace down just to play around with Bad Juju again, because it was one of my favorite guns. Multi-Jack in Box asks, if you can make an exotic weapon, what would it be? Funny you ask this. I had created the idea and concept of having 2 daggers in your special ammo, special weapon slot back in the day when swords got introduced in Taken King. And I sat there and went, okay, this would be cool to have, at least in my mind. I know it starts to play with the whole implications of what hunters are and everything, but you know what, hunters, just give me this for a second, because it's 2 knives, not 1, 2. And the problem that I always had with it was, of course, balance. Swords are a little bit slower and deliberate, and they're heavy hitting, but these daggers could be like faster hitters. They could be quicker in motion. I just don't think that they would fit, of course, either a Titan or a Warlock very well. They would very much fit, of course, that of a hunter. But now I look back at balance and I say, yeah, no, I think this could work out just fine. Even though it is a super, the Void Stalker subclass with the 2 knives, moving as quick as they do and whatnot, really blows out the entire expectation I had of like how those knives could work. They would be slightly lower in ammo, but their trade-off would be that they would be like faster hits, but they would still be very powerful hits. So I don't know. I think that as like a closer range melee-ish weapon, they'd be a lot of fun to play with. It would just be how they could kind of calculate it out, and I guess that's why they never really played with it or wanted to institute it, or they just never got that far. They wanted to leave knives as is. But if we wanted something more conventional, let's take Touch of Malice and combine it with Thunderlord. So, the whole concept with this thing would be that it would be an HMG that would be able to have reflexive reloads and everything like that. And it would also be able to reload itself after like a kill, or it would be able to reload itself in other certain circumstances. Say you do some of like the slide moves, and that could refill some of the ammo for you. But then when you're out of ammo, it has a touch and malice effect. Not on your life bar though, but on your super bar. So here's the thing that I had thought of with this guy, and the reason I thought of it. It came down to the problem with Sunsinger back in the day, because Talalik was always the one that everybody would say, well, run Talalik because it does more damage, it's faster fire, and as a Sunsinger, you're not going to be using Radiance all that often because you're going to pop it when we need to resurrect. And I would always just go, well, yeah, I guess that's true. Okay. But then what about the encounters that I really don't need it? What about running, especially like a hunter with Arcstrider? There would be some cases where I would go, well, I kind of want to have Arcstrider on because for my preferred method of killing, I preferred using the Blade Dance for a little while. I said Arcstrider. Arcstrider or Blade Dance, either one of them. But I don't need the melee in certain boss fights because, of course, when I go and get close to them, they ground pound and I'm dead. So what do? I have a super bar that's just sitting here. That would be the answer. An HMG that could pull from, or a more powerful weapon that could pull from your super bar after the ammo ran out and would be able to hit the enemy then to just extend your overall ammo count. It would help with DPS checks. I think it would be just another, not as powerful as some other weapons that are out there, like a well-placed sleeper or Whisper of the Worm shots or anything, or Sleeper Simulant if you have full ammo or something. But it would be still something powerful enough, but versatile enough. And that's always the key that I kind of look at when I start to make weapons of my own in the back of my mind. Anyway, I really carried this on a lot longer than I did last time. I don't know why that was. But I hope you like those ideas. Lots of fun different weapons you can play with that are out there that can be influenced by others that Bungie has kind of worked with and messed around with, or ones that I've, of course, played with over the course of time. Rin Clovis asks, do you think a Guardian can piggyback off another Guardian's light? Well, I think if that were the case, Cade wouldn't have a gaping hole in his chest. Just going to say that now. I don't think so. Now, what I can say is something similar to Sunsinger, or in this case, what we have with like Well of Radiance and everything. That kind of stuff, yes, but it's in certain circumstances. It's not absolutely every single time. So that's where I think it's a bit of a mixture. But passively, no, I don't think so whatsoever. We do have another instance, though, which is the story of Aphrodite throwing Saladin like a javelin. It sounds like both of them coalesced their arc energy together, and that's how she was able... She basically acted like a railgun to throw Saladin like a spear, using the armor that he had and everything as the rail element. Anyway, that's the only other thing that I can kind of think of. There are showcases with the supers that seem like they can go ahead and combine themselves. But on a whole, no, I don't think so. Zetter0 asks, who are some of your favorite characters, either in Destiny or just in general? I'll give you three from each category. Destiny first. Varix would be the first one that I really like in Destiny. He's not two-dimensional. He's not even three-dimensional. He goes over so many different aspects and builds that he's just a really interesting character. In that respect, I really hope to hear more about him. I know that he has the most loyal lore entries that I need to read over. Good stuff in there. Probably going to be a lot of fun to read over for myself and make some good implications and tiebacks once I get there. But anyway, the second one would be Petra Venj. I really liked House of Wolves, and it was all because of these two. But Petra is also not a two-dimensional character. She has a lot going on with herself mentally. We started to learn some extra things, of course, about her with her time as Regent Commander, as well as also the implications that exist that she was also as learning or going to learn to be a Techiyun. We're not sure exactly what goes into that, but I would love to hear more. So that being said, those are at least two. The last one would be Aphrodite, and I think if you've been on this channel long enough, you know and understand enough why. Okay? Alright. If you're not, I've got like 3 videos that I've made on her. I have made so much content on Aphrodite, it's stupid. She is the reason that I got into this lore to begin with. Really just enjoy her character, and I like all the stuff that goes into it. She is very nuanced. She is, again, not a two-dimensional character. That being said, I really do think that the females in Destiny are also very strong female characters. In fact, if I compare them to somebody that is supposed to be like a strong male lead, which is Zavala, there are many out there that would like one-up Zavala in a heartbeat. And it's not to say that like the male characters don't have some very good ones. Like we've got Tevis Larson, you had Cade, you've got Shax, who I still think is very good overall. Saladin, who I know a lot of people really just are like, I just don't like him and his voice. Well, voice aside, he's still a very interesting character. And even then you got like friggin' Gellion and Radagast and so on. Every single character in Destiny has a upside and a downside to him. It just so happens that most of the good ones are kind of dead. And then there's ones that should have stayed dead. Bray. Scott Bogati asks, is the Traveler more like the Hive than anything else? Because Ikora says, as we go stronger, so does the Traveler, much like the Hive, so the Traveler does it go by sword logic? No, this comes down to the affinities of light versus darkness and how all of that kind of coalesces and changes. The Traveler feeds off of what kind of stuff we are giving to it, versus the Hive and Hive Gods, which is based on what we are taking from others. And I know that that's a fine line that kind of trades off between it, but that's the difference between a defense force and a conquering force. And that is why there is a distinction that Zavala at least plays up in the first cutscene, or one of the first cutscenes in Forsaken, just to make sure that we know and understand the difference between it all. There is definitely a difference between how the light acts and the darkness acts in terms of its acquisition of power. I think I've already answered this question, though. I hope I've done enough at least on it, mostly because it's going to skirt a lot of topics and conversation pieces we've already talked about. So, if you still have further questions, let me know below. Johnny5163 Locke asks, I'm looking at the next expansion and trying to see if when we encounter Sabbathun. It would have to be Penumbra, right? Last expansion, same word as current raid mechanic. Are we going to the dark side of the moon, Luna, to go get her? What do you think? Maybe D3. I think D3 is going to be the War of the Darkness. If they put any kind of tagline underneath it, I think like a movie poster, like Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, I think that's going to be the tagline for that, the War of the Darkness. I could be completely wrong, though, that being said. But anyway, I hope that answers the question on Destiny 3 at least, because, yeah, I do think we're going to see Sabbathun in Destiny 2 still, and I think it is going to be somewhere in Penumbra. And if it's not going to be her, it's going to be more agents that are kind of set up with her. She's a clever girl, as they say. So that being said, she's not going to be like at the foray of everything. If we do anything, I largely agree with many in the community that say it's going to just be her being pushed back. I really don't get the sense that she's going to fall like Oryx did. Oryx kind of fell because he got way too emotional, and he really was about the war a little bit more, like with Zavua Wrath. I really feel like Sabbathun's going to be harder to take down, though. So that being said, if we do anything, I think it's going to be to stop some operations she has in our system. Something else that might be holding back the Traveler and why it can't talk or something like that. I don't know. That's what I think. Sucker Punch 26 asks, where do you personally want the story of the Guardian in Destiny to go? Fanfiction of our Guardian. Also, what's your goal with the channel so far? I'm actually going to talk about the second piece here real quick first, a little out of order. But I went into depth with this actually in the last video. I think it was about an hour and a half into the video, if you guys want to kind of look for a timestamp or listen around for it. But this was something that was brought up a couple times, and it was, what do I want to hope to achieve? I'll give you the Cliff Notes version, but in about 5 years, I would hope, maybe 4, I would be around 100,000 subscribers. We would be covering a couple or maybe like 3 or 4 games overall in terms of story, lore, gameplay, other facets that would be out there. I would finally be over any kind of fears that I have of covering content and being the person that I am, as I'm slowly getting more and more away from and kind of getting back into, like, you know, the mindset that I somewhat know what I'm talking about. But largely it would be to do something further for more than just the Destiny community. I can't play Warframe because of migraines and headaches. It's just way too fast for me to keep up with. But if Anthem is good, maybe I can switch over to that and cover that off and on. There are other Final Fantasy games out there that I would love to cover, even though they're a little older. There are retro games that I would love to look back on and cover. People have asked me to cover BioShock because that's still a very big series and franchise that's been around there in gaming for some time now. There are plenty of others that I could pick from overall, but I'm not going to just yet because I can't. What I would hope for is that I can go full-time in the next year. And if I can go full-time in the next year, I can focus on all of that stuff and I can start to grow a little bit more for the channel and the community. And my ultimate goal for the community is to reach out and understand that this medium of video games is something that we can do great things with. If it's not just doing donations for St. Jude, then maybe for other companies as well, or charities as well, to do more with the world that video games can otherwise bring people together for. Ultimately, that's my goal. Ultimately, that's where I would want to be. And I want to do good things for this world to understand, like, I can hopefully make a difference, that we can all make a difference in it. And I know there's are kind of like sweet and salty kind of ideas and so on, but I hope that makes sense. That is ultimately where I would like to have this channel go when all is said and done. And where do I personally want to see the story of our Guardian go? I want to see a choice by the end of it. I want to see something with how they're playing up the Drifter and Shin Malfeur's discussion pieces that I've seen so far. I want a choice, because ultimately it feels like we are going down this darker path, and I am wondering if that's not what's going to happen with our Guardian. If there's something that we're going to go Darth Vader with, we're going to bring balance to the Force all in all. If that's not going to happen, I could totally see that being the case. But I'm curious to see what they do, but ultimately I think they are very much going Star Wars with this, which I'm kind of okay with. I'm definitely kind of okay with. Ulantan kind of puts it best in his in the ship for the lore entry for Symmetry. There can be, if there is no light, then there is no darkness. And ultimately that's what we would have to give up in order to defeat the darkness, if ultimately that could be what could stop them. And the question is, would we? Ultimately, would we do so? And I think what we've seen with Destiny 2, and especially with the immediate campaign, probably not. Like, we probably wouldn't. Anyway, roundabout idea. I hope that answers the question enough. Rahul S. asks, if there was one thing you could change about the history of Destiny lore, what would you change? One, I would like explanations of what's going on with Zavala and his character right now, because of what I had mentioned before with Kamala Rior and going into the tower, etc. Like we talked about towards the top of the show. That being said, if not that, then get rid of the comics. I have no interest in them. There is nothing that they have given me. They just aren't interesting. And I've completely skipped over covering them past like the first issue of Warmind, because I thought that was going to be good, and it was initially. But issues 2 and 3 just weren't there. I hope that Bungie has basically abandoned that project, because I don't want to see any more comics come up that are in no way tied back to what we're doing, that don't have more oversight or anything like that. Otherwise, with the history of it, I don't care about that. I think that Bungie's got a good enough head on their shoulders that they know what they're doing. I would think that it would just be like a little bit of changeover with like how Osiris was handled. If I have any complaints, I think that's it. And Rasputin still is opened up enough that they can work with it more and give us more over time. So that I'm not too worried about. But Osiris is the one that I'm really kind of bugged by right now, and I hope that they can do something to salvage his story. Green Rage and Rock, I can read. Green Ragnarok. Which big bad? The Blackheart, Atheon, Crota, Skolas, Oryx, Axis, Gaul, Callus, Panoptes, Argus, Nakrazol, Kalar, Riven is the strongest. This goes between one of 3 options that you have listed here, and they would either be Atheon, Oryx, or Riven. I don't think that any of the others really hold a place in terms of where they could be in terms of power. Maybe Panoptes. Granted, Panoptes was, one that I can kind of see. But Atheon and Panoptes would probably be like on the same level with each other in a way. With Atheon, we still don't know if we're actually outside the Vaulter Glass or not, if we've just been like doing a time cycle loop, or he has some kind of control over what we're doing, he, she, it. Panoptes could possibly come back from it all. We don't know if Panoptes was just the ultimate mind of the Vex, or if there is another mind that is ultimate of the Vex. It's up in the air. We don't know enough information right now about them. Next, that would be Oryx, but I put the addendum of Oryx in his prime, because Oryx, when we fought him, was most likely very weak, because he had to make the trip to our solar system to try to kill us. And I am fairly sure, I'm pretty certain, that he expelled a lot of energy by not being able to explore, because Crota was already here and he already sent a lot of tribute over his way. So that's why I kind of think that overall Oryx would not be one that we would want to mess with in his prime. But as we had seen him, no, I'm not too worried about him. The only reason he was really hard to kill, ultimately, is because he was in his throne world, and even then, it took Toland or something else to guide us through, to help us through everything that we were trying to do. So I don't know, it's a tough thing to tell with Oryx. That's why I wanted to put a lot of emphasis on where I think he lies. But again, I think in his prime, he would have been nasty to deal with. And the last one really is Riven. Riven's not done yet. She's also taken, so that's also kind of interesting. I also don't know enough about Riven right now to really give reasoning behind it. But the fact that she thrives off of wishes, wishes are a very powerful thing within fantasy. And that being the case, that they're kind of driving that idea home, I am really interested to see how much Riven as a wish dragon is going to continue onward. Because if we ultimately got granted her ultimate wish, and she's able to fulfill her own wishes because of that, I'm a little spooked. There's also the wish board, and how many times we may possibly use that. How often does that play back into Riven? Because she apparently has some needs or ways that she can work with it. So it could be the mystery behind Riven right now, but ultimately I think she's a bit of a problem. But ultimately, I think Riven is one of the strongest that we've been able to deal with so far, or try to push back for the time being. But that's where I think I'll leave that. I think between those 4, with Panoptes and Atheon being kind of on the same level, or Oryx in his prime, or Riven, I think those are our 4 strongest that we kind of have out of that list you told us. The rest, not so worried about, believe it or not. Really not too worried about. And lastly, Jaime Omo asks, and I might have, again, butchered the name, sorry if I did for anybody this whole time, do you think the rest of the Vanguard will break apart and cause a Guardian civil war or something like that? Short version, yes, I think so. because all of the stuff that's been going on between Zavala and Ikora and the instances that have been passed back and forth between the unrest that's happening already in the tower and the city, yes, absolutely, I think there is a civil war that's going to break out. And we've already seen bits and pieces of it with the factions as well. It's always been one of those things that's just hovered in the background, but we started to see some stuff where like Dead Orbit is communicating with Spider, and there's some other bits and pieces that are going along with it. Just nasty stuff overall. I think that humanity as a whole is still kind of out for itself and not really looking to work together, and that's kind of the shame of it, because we're just falling into the darkness on our own without any help from an outward force, that being said. But Civil War, totally, I can see it. There will be some pieces where, take the Drifter, for instance, where we think that he is effectively there for a reason. He's doing something of his own accord. We don't know what yet. What if that is a darkness plot? And all of a sudden, everybody that's been involved in trying to counteract that darkness plot basically gets into it and says, you know what, this is actually a really good idea. I'm going to follow along with it. Now all of a sudden you have some guys that are going to go along with it. And as we know, there are Guardians that are along with the Drifter because of that. Because he has some sway over loot and what kind of stuff he gives them. And the promise of power to fight against the darkness after what had happened with Gaul. Even the Renegade that we start to read about in the Drifter's Gambit book is in the same thinking. So this guy that possibly maybe Shin Malfure is thinking about that, is thinking that it's a great idea to possibly see where the Drifter's Gambit ultimately lies. Ultimately, I can see it as a bad idea because a civil war is possibly going to break out, and that would be kind of like the faction wars all over again. And there will be a lot of Guardians that will be involved in it this time, but it's going to be a light versus dark kind of battle that's going to ensue. I am kind of worried about that. I don't know where they're going to play that, and I hope that there is a choice involved. But ultimately, that's where it feels like they're writing it. I just don't know how they're going to actually play around with it, or where Gambit ultimately fits in the story of it all for us. Anyway, I hope that answered your question. I know that was kind of like all over the place, but just for example's sake, I wanted to pull up the Drifter, because I think he's one of the best examples of why I think a civil war is going to pop up out of nowhere. Or not out of nowhere, but of course out of events that are taking place right now. But with that is every question you guys asked. I read this video twice over. That hurts. I'm really not going to have a voice tomorrow. I'm really getting ready for that. I'm going to go get some tea after this. But I'm not done yet. I got one other thing I want to go over with you real quick, and that is what's going to happen now. We had these 25,000 subscriber specials, and I wanted to make that my plan while I had enough time, or thinking that it was going to give me enough time, to research all the stuff that's going on in Destiny 2. Hasn't happened. Why? Because I hate life, and life hates me. And anyway, I'll stop being somewhat sarcastic here. It's just been a time of it. So, what are my plans? I need to get through, and I'm gonna try to hunker down and probably push off sleep for a little bit of some of this, but I'm gonna try to hunker down and get done a couple more books within what we have. I got done the Mars Senna. I am almost done Drifter's Gambit. I've got, I think, 1, maybe 2 entries left to go to record and look over my thoughts for. And then I want to read over the Prince's book, Uldren's book, to see more of what's going on there. And then I think I'm going to be confident enough that I can dip into some of the lore to start to explain some of it. And what do I mean by that? Well, the Mars Senna will be a 3-part video. I want to make this into something where we can cover the basics of what is going on within these books. And I think if we understand the basics a little better, for those that are thinking about it, we'll have better understanding of what's happening. So for the Mars Senna, for instance, it'll be the basically rise of the Awoken and how that all happens. And then the second part will be like the middle reign of the Awoken. And then the last part will be the final reign that we see amongst the Awoken before the splintering kind of happens. And they go off onto their Marisov and takes her faction off into our space again. That is Such the Cliff Notes version, it's not even funny. So much behind that one, and I think the Maracena is a very important one to talk about, but I want to do that the right way. So that's why I think that 3 parts is a justified reason to look into that. And some of these books are also going to be like maybe 3-parters. The stuff I skimmed for Uldren's book, I can see that being a 2-part series. But we'll see ultimately when I get my thoughts down, or how it plays back to some of the other books, or how I can tie it back into it. But I want to make sure the basics are there and they're solid. After we are done with that, that is where I want to get into speculation. That is where I want to get back into spinfoil. And that is where we are ultimately going to get into a lot of the fun stuff. And granted, I'm not saying that the basics aren't fun, but I know that they're not as fun as some of the other stuff that we've done in the past. What this will serve to accomplish is it will be more straightforward content for me to create, especially over the holiday season coming up here, but it will also be something for me to see where you guys want me to go with everything. It'll also be a way for me to tie back to the channel, connect with you guys more often, and fulfill the thing that I've needed to do, which is at least good quality content for you guys to talk about this stuff, but to break it down and not put so much pressure on myself. And that fulfills a goal that I've had since the beginning of the year, which was to not be so hard on myself. Obviously, I've done a really good job of that so far. I hope my sarcasm came through on that one. Anyway, I hope you guys learned a little bit more about what's going on with Destiny, or my feelings with Destiny. I hope you guys had all your questions answered. If I did miss anything, either from the last video, this video, whatever in between, let me know in those comments below so I can get back to you guys, answer your questions as best I can. That is still the one thing that I try to set aside a lot of time for, is to at least read your comments. The last video, I didn't really respond to a lot of comments, only because 1, I've been super busy, and 2, I figured we were going to have this video anyway, so it'd be a really good thing to tie back on, or this video and what subsequently happened with the last one as well. So I hope that was enough for you guys. I still don't want to push off the idea of answering comments, or at least reading them over. If you see a heart come from me, a lot of times it's just to say, hey, I'm sorry I didn't reply to this, I did like it, I did read it, here you go. And that's the biggest thing that I want to portray with that heart whenever you guys see it come from me. Anyway, I'm carrying this on a little bit too long, so I hope you guys like the plans that I have in mind. I hope that, again, this answered stuff for the channel, for Destiny, for me, for anything else. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching any of the little bits and pieces that I put into this video or the other one. Thank you guys for all your questions. Thank you guys for all your support. If there's anything else that you guys would like to see me do, please let me know again in those comments below, and I will see what I can do about that. But before I carry this on any longer, to Guardians and non-Guardians alike, thank you again so much for listening and watching to me here these last couple videos. Thank you again for your support. I'll see you next space time. Take care.